Hi, this is Kyle again, and this time we're going to look at a few examples of exceptions actually being caught. What you'll see here is just to the left of my very first try in the payroll form code, I have a breakpoint inserted, and I've done that by clicking right in this margin to set that. We'll look more at breakpoints in another week. Anyway, I've set a breakpoint, and so what we're going to do is watch what the code is doing as these exceptions are happening and being handled. Let's start the program and see what happens here. Let's put in the name. It will be Kyle. And the hours worked will be, well, there'll be nothing. And the rate, well, let's put in 20. So when I click calculate, I left the hours blank. And so here it is on the try. And so it's got this far in the program, and now it's trying to figure things out. On this line, it's trying to convert the hours text field into a decimal value. And at that point, it shouldn't be working. Now it's noticed there's a format exception, and so we're calling that hours entry exception, and now the rest of these statements are going to run because that exception has taken place. As we step through the code, we're going to see the message box should be happening. That ought to pop up. There we go. The text is being selected and focus is being set. And that's the end of the try, and that's the end of that particular execution, and we're back to here. That's what happens every time the hours is left blank. Now let's try entering something better. Let's try putting in that Kyle worked 40 hours this week, and the rate is, you never know when it's going to happen. Some cat comes along and just starts typing and ruins your data entry. And so let's calculate what happens when Kyle's making this ridiculous amount of money. We know that that value is going to be well outside of our business rules, but let's take a look at what's happening. There we are. We're starting our try. It's going to try and set the hours. Now that worked properly, so it's going to progress through to the second internal try statement in this nested try. It's going to try and convert that large rate into the form input rate value, which is decimal, and it's going to work. And so now it's going to access the hours property for the object. And it's going to set that, and now it's going to try and set the rate. Now what's happened, it's tried to set the rate, and because in payroll.vb, the set procedure for the rate includes this level of validation where the wage is supposed to be validated between 10 and a quarter and $42, something's gone wrong here, and that means this argument out of range exception has been thrown. This has taken place. If we go back to the payroll form, we see here it's caught an object out of range exception and named it object argument exception. So the next thing that will happen is a message box. Excellent. And it wasn't the hours worked that was an error, it was the pay rate in error. So now we're going to see the rate being selected and the focus being set to the rate. When we're back to the form, that's exactly what we'll see. The rate's selected, and now we can type in something valid. So maybe Kyle makes $20 an hour. Calculate, and this time it's going to try. It's going to set the hours, it's going to set the rate, it's going to calculate the pay for the object. It's running through the find pay. It's setting the summary values the same way we did earlier in the semester. And it's going to change the display to show the person's pay. It didn't catch any exceptions, so the tries are ending, and now we are back to the form, and we can see that 40 times 20 works out to 800, and there's no overtime, so this actually makes sense. And for what it's worth, our summary values should be updated as well. Let's try again with a different set of values. Let's make a new instance called Kyle2. And we'll set the hours equal to 75 and the rate is 19. So we know something's going to happen here, but let's see how it goes. We're at the first try. It's going to try and convert the hours to a decimal value. It'll work. We'll go to the inside try, and we'll see that the input rate is set successfully. And now the hours are being set using the set property procedure, and that's going to cause an object out of range exception. And that's again because inside of this property procedure for hours, it's validating the hours against a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 60. Because this if statement wasn't satisfied, it went to the else, and this exception was thrown. So we're seeing here it caught an object argument exception, and now we're going to get a message box. And because it knows it was the hours worked, it's going to select the hours instead and set the focus accordingly. And now the user knows they have to fix that. So that's pretty much how some different types of exceptions can be caught, and sort of how the nested structure can help as well. So I hope that was helpful, and we'll move on to events.